picture this. You are sitting at a beautiful table in a slightly crowded restaurant. The lighting is perfectly dim, the ambiance is fantastic, and, the hum of conversation around you is making you feel incredibly sophisticated.
Oh, yeah, that is the perfect setup.
Right. But then you see it out of the corner of your eye. The waiter is approaching your table.
Here we go.
They pull out their notepad, they look directly at you, and suddenly your mind just completely blanks.
They're completely empty.
Yeah. I mean, your palms start to sweat. You know you want the roasted chicken, but somehow every single English word you've ever learned just evaporates into thin air. You are experiencing the dreaded waiter panic.
Waiter panic. It's so real, and it's a very visceral phenomenon, You go from enjoying a lovely evening to suddenly feeling like you've been called on in a high-stakes exam.
Yes.
An exam that you entirely forgot to study for. The social pressure just completely short-circuits the linguistic part of your brain.
Well, today's deep dive is about permanently dismantling that panic. We are exploring a fascinating blueprint designed specifically for mastering English dining and food conversations.
It's such a great resource.
It really is. So the mission today is to examine this highly curated collection of linguistic tools. We want to take that panic-inducing experience of eating out and transform it into an opportunity for really confident communication.
Exactly.
We're moving step by step from the basic survival mechanics of ordering all the way up to expressing complex cultural idioms.
Because food, when you really analyze it, is the ultimate universal connector. Every culture on the planet gathers around a meal.
Right. Everybody eats.
Everybody eats.
Oh.
So understanding the anatomy of a food conversation isn't just about, memorizing vocabulary flashcards. It's about successfully navigating a highly structured social ritual.
A ritual. I like that word for it.
Yeah, because when you sit down at a restaurant, you aren't just acquiring calories, you are participating in a shared human experience, and that comes with its own deeply ingrained set of rules.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because to prevent that waiter panic, we first need to understand the foundational script of that ritual. Reading through our sources, the best way to visualize this is honestly like playing a role-playing video game.
Oh, I love this analogy.
It makes so much sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know when you walk up to a non-player character in a game, and a little menu pops up with a specific dialogue tree?
Yep.
There are expected inputs from you and expected outputs from them. Navigating a restaurant is exactly the same mechanic. If you have the specific expected phrases in your inventory, you can bypass all the stress.
You just select the right dialogue option and keep the interaction moving smoothly.
Exactly.
The video game analogy works perfectly here because it really highlights the necessity of structure. Before we can even begin to talk about the nuances of the cuisine, we have to, successfully acquire the food.
Right. Step 1, get the food.
The food. And our sources break this dialogue tree down into two distinct categories. The first is the purely functional request. This is your standard action button.
Like pressing A to interact.
Precisely. You need to trigger the menu by asking, could I see the menu? You need to initiate the transaction with, I'd like to order. And you need the exit strategy, could we have the bill, please?
Let's actually look at the mechanics of those functional phrases, though, because they aren't just direct commands. The blueprint specifically highlights phrases like, could I have some water, please? Instead of just saying, give me water.
Right. There's a big difference there.
There is. Why do English speakers rely so heavily on these indirect modals? Like, why use could I or I would like? Instead of just stating the demand, you're the paying customer.
Well, that is the core of English politeness mechanics. In linguistic terms, it's about preserving what we call negative face.
Negative face.
Yeah, which is essentially a person's desire not to be imposed upon.
Okay, I see.
Even though the waiter is there to serve you, giving a direct command like, give me water, feels incredibly aggressive in English because it removes their autonomy.
It sounds like an order from a dictator.
Exactly. But by phrasing it as a question, could I have some water? You are theoretically giving them the option to say no, even though you both know they are going to bring the water.
Right, they're not going to refuse you water.
No, but it softens the imposition. It maintains the social harmony of the interaction.
So selecting the blunt command dialogue option actively lowers your relationship meter with the waiter.
That is exactly what happened.
That makes total sense.
Okay.
But a meal is rarely just a transaction with the staff. We also have the second category in our dialogue tree, which the sources call the social bridging phrases.
Yes, the social bridges.
This is the toolkit for interacting with your dining companions. It's phrases like, have you eaten here before? Or turning to your friend and asking, what do you recommend?
And those bridging phrases are where the real social heavy lifting happens.
How so?
Well, asking a dining companion, what do you recommend, isn't actually about gathering data on the menu items. It serves a profound psychological function. You are validating their taste. Yeah, you are deferring to their expertise and inviting them to act as a guide in this shared experience.
It's the same mechanic when the food actually arrives, right?
Yeah.
And you ask, would you like to try some? You aren't just offering them a piece of chicken.
No, not at all.
You are literally offering to share resources. You are moving the dynamic away from a sterile, isolated transaction where everyone just eats their own food in a silo, and you're turning it into a collaborative event.
Precisely. You are building trust over the dinner table through the act of voluntary sharing.
Okay, so let's say we've successfully navigated the dialogue tree. We've used our indirect modals, we've validated our companions, we've ordered, and the waiter has dropped off the plates.
The food is here.
The functional script essentially ends here. Now, to actually discuss the meal sitting right in front of you, you have to shift gears. You have to leave those transactional phrases behind and tap into a completely different skill set.
The sensory vocabulary.
Sensory vocabulary. Because the language you need to acquire the food is entirely different from the language you need to analyze it.
It's entirely different.
Exactly. Our source material breaks this sensory toolkit down into a battle between taste and texture.
Right.
For taste, it lists the foundational profiles, sweet, salty, sour, bitter, savory. But then it dedicates a massive amount of focus to a separate category for texture. Words like crispy, crunchy, creamy, juicy, tender, soft, and chewy.
It's a robust list.
It is. But I have to be honest here. I want to push back on this division a little bit.
Oh. Where's the friction?
Well, is texture really as important as taste? Think about it from a practical standpoint. If I take a bite of a burger and the flavor profile is absolutely mind-blowing, I'm just going to call it delicious.
Sure.
Why do we need to complicate the learning process with a half-dozen structural words like crunchy or tender? If you know the words for the flavors, isn't that the whole ball game?
Well, what's fascinating here is that taste is really only half the story of consumption. Texture dictates the actual physical, mechanical experience of eating. Flavor happens on the tongue, but texture is the structural engineering of the dish. Think about a French fry.
Oh, I love French fries.
Right. If a French fry has the exact perfect salty, savory taste, but the texture is soft and chewy instead of crispy on the outside and fluffy on the inside,
Oh, no.
it is an absolute culinary disaster.
A chewy French fry is a crime against humanity. I totally take your point.
See? The flavor profile hasn't changed at all, but the structural integrity failed. We require a robust vocabulary for texture because those words describe the physics of the food in our mouths. And if you confuse the nuances of these sensory words, you can run into very real-world trouble.
I actually have a perfect example of this trouble from the blueprint. The sources highlight the chaotic overlap between the words spicy and hot.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
In English, this specific linguistic quirk causes a massive amount of confusion for learners. And honestly, sometimes actual physical pain.
It's a dangerous overlap.
It really is. Spicy refers to the flavor profile, specifically the presence of capsaicin. It's the chemical heat from chili peppers or jalapenos that makes your tongue tingle and your nose run.
Right.
Hot, on the other hand, is supposed to refer to the literal physical thermal temperature of the dish. Did it just come out of a boiling pot or has it been sitting on the counter? But English speakers lazily use hot to mean both.
And that ambiguity is a trap.
Totally.
If a waiter at a Thai restaurant asks if you like your curry hot, and you assume they mean thermal temperature, because of course you want your soup warm, you might say, yes, very hot.
Oh no.
And what arrives is a bowl of broth loaded with ghost peppers that brings tears to your eyes and completely ruins your palate for the entire evening.
Or the exact reverse. I've actually done this. I eagerly took a massive bite of a cheese dip that I was told was really hot, expecting a nice kick of cayenne pepper.
Let me guess.
Yeah. Instead, I severely burned the roof of my mouth on scalding, bubbling mozzarella.
Ow.
Yeah. The distinction between these sensory words isn't just an academic exercise in vocabulary. It's practically a matter of physical safety. You have to clarify if they mean capsaicin heat or thermal heat.
It proves that mastering sensory vocabulary protects the experience of the meal. And, the blueprint also distinguishes between the words delicious and tasty, which many people treat as identical synonyms.
But they aren't.
No, they actually represent a scale of experience.
I see. So tasty feels very casual, right? You might eat a handful of pretzels and say, oh, these are tasty. It just means it has a pleasant flavor.
Exactly. But you would rarely call a masterfully prepared three-course anniversary dinner tasty.
Right, that feels like an insult to the chef.
It does. That requires the word delicious. Delicious is a much stronger, more emphatic compliment. It elevates the food from a pleasant snack to an exceptional experience.
Okay, so we have the functional script to get the food, and we have the sensory vocabulary to analyze the physics and flavors of the food. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
The language of food is so potent and so deeply embedded in the human psyche that it completely refuses to stay confined to the dining table. It spills over into the rest of our lives. We use the mechanics of food to build the metaphors we need to describe human behavior.
The metaphorical menu. Idioms.
Yes, the blueprint provides an incredible list of food-based idioms, but I really want to look closely at a few of them to understand why our brains do this.
Let's do it.
Take the phrase, roast someone. The definition is to playfully or sometimes brutally mock or insult a person. But why do we use a cooking method as a social weapon?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the physical process of roasting. You place something in a harsh, dry, unrelenting heat, and you leave it there over a long period of time until it breaks down.
Oh, wow.
Right. By mapping that literal cooking method onto social aggression, we perfectly capture the feeling of being subjected to sustained, inescapable mockery. The physical act of cooking explains the psychological feeling of being mocked.
We take the literal and use it to explain the abstract. That is fascinating. It's the same thing with the idiom being salty, isn't it?
Yes, exactly the same mechanism.
When someone is holding on to petty bitterness or resentment over a minor slight, we say they are salty. We take a foundational flavor profile, salt, and we map it onto a human emotion.
And historically, salt was used as a preservative.
Oh.
It was used to cure meats so they wouldn't go bad over long journeys. So when a person is salty, they are literally preserving their bitterness. They are refusing to let the resentment go. They're curing their anger so it lasts longer.
That is brilliant. I never thought about the preservation aspect of the salt. It makes the idiom so much richer. But the one that really stands out to me from the sources is the phrase, "It left a bad taste in my mouth."
That's a powerful one.
We use this to describe a lingering negative feeling after an awkward interaction or, witnessing something unfair.
And this is where linguistics meets biology. Think about what happens when you witness a deeply unethical situation, or a friend betrays your trust.
You feel sick.
Exactly. You don't just feel sad in some vague intellectual way. Your body reacts. You often feel a literal, visceral disgust in your stomach.
It's a physical revulsion.
Exactly. Neurologically, moral disgust and physical disgust trigger very similar regions in the brain.
Wait, really?
Yes. The brain treats a toxic social interaction the same way it treats toxic spoiled food. So when we say an interaction left a bad taste in my mouth, we aren't just being poetic. We are borrowing the undeniable physical reality of tasting something rotten to accurately communicate an invisible, abstract moral judgment to other people.
That is wild.
We use the reality of food to make our emotional realities visible.
We use the physical to explain the invisible. That completely changes how I view these phrases. They aren't just quirky sayings, they are biological shorthand.
Beautifully put.
Okay, so we've covered a massive amount of ground here. We've got the functional ordering scripts and indirect modals. We've broken down the structural engineering of taste versus texture. And we've explored the metaphorical power of food idioms to explain human behavior.
It's a lot of tools.
It is. But mastering all of this, it's ultimately just gathering the building blocks. The true goal of this blueprint isn't to just turn you into a walking dictionary. It's about utilizing these linguistic tools to connect deeply with other human beings.
Which brings us to the culminating exercise of the source material. The architecture of a food memory.
Yes. The blueprint provides a very specific 6-step structural guide for describing a favorite food to someone. It's essentially a recipe for a compelling conversation.
Let's hear the steps.
All right, it starts with step 1, naming the type of food.
Right.
Step 2, listing the main ingredients. Step 3, describing the taste. Step 4, describing the texture. Step 5, explaining why you love it. And finally, step 6, sharing a personal memory connected to it.
It's a very deliberate, engineered progression.
It is. And so what does this all mean? When I analyze this 6-step structure, I notice a massive psychological pivot happening right in the middle.
What do you mean?
Well, look at steps 1 through 4. The type, the ingredients, the taste, the texture. They are entirely objective. They are focused completely on the physical object sitting on the plate.
Right, the data of the food.
Yes. But the climax of the structure, steps 5 and 6, completely abandon the physical food. It pivots entirely away from the plate and focuses purely on subjective nostalgia and human connection.
And this raises an important question about our underlying motivations. What is the actual purpose of learning a language?
Right.
This 6-step framework perfectly encapsulates why we do all of this heavy lifting. It proves that we don't spend hours memorizing sensory words like crunchy or savory just so we can act like a database transmitting dry, objective data about the chemical makeup of a meal.
Nobody wants to talk to a database at dinner.
No. We learn those words so we can build a bridge to our own personal histories. We do it to invite the listener into our memories.
I love that. You aren't just describing a random slice of pizza to someone. You're using the vocabulary to recreate the exact slice of pizza you ate on a specific street corner at 2 a.m. after your best friend's wedding.
Yes.
The ingredients and the textures are just the stage setting. The memory is the actual story you're trying to tell.
The food is simply the vehicle for the empathy. And when you realize that the ultimate goal is sharing a memory rather than transmitting data, the intense pressure of perfectly reciting the vocabulary starts to fade away.
The panic disappears.
Exactly. The waiter panic subsides because the goal isn't grammatical perfection. The goal is human connection.
That is a perfect way to look at it. Let's recap the journey we've taken you on today.
Oh.
We've started in the trenches, dismantling waiter panic by understanding the role-playing mechanics and the indirect politeness of the restaurant dialogue tree.
Getting the food.
Right, getting the food. We moved from there into the physics of eating, distinguishing the structural necessity of texture from the flavor of taste, and of course, exploring the perilous trap of confusing capsaicin heat with thermal heat.
Save your tongue. Learn the difference.
Seriously. Then we unpack the metaphorical menu, seeing how our brains use cooking methods and flavor profiles to give physical shape to our abstract emotional and moral reactions.
The idioms.
And finally, we landed on the beautiful architecture of sharing a personal food memory, moving from objective ingredients on a plate to subjective nostalgia in the heart.
It is a comprehensive blueprint, and it truly transforms a daunting, panic-inducing task into a series of manageable, meaningful, and highly social steps.
It absolutely does. And before we go, I want to share the exact closing encouragement directly from our source material because it is the perfect mindset to adopt.
I love this quote.
Quote, "Remember, confidence comes from practice, not perfection. Every conversation makes you a better English speaker."
Practice, not perfection. It shifts the focus from the fear of making a mistake to the joy of making an attempt.
Truly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over the next time you sit down for a meal.
Something to chew on, if you will.
Very nice. When you are passionately describing your absolute favorite dish to a friend, are you really just listing the physical ingredients on the plate? Or are you desperately trying to use language to recreate the exact feeling of the memory associated with it?
Think about it.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.